So tonight we're going to be going over the 4-step. Now, depending on how much time we have, we might be splitting it into 2 different meetings. I don't know how far we're going to get, but what it's going to look like is what we're probably going to do is take 2 groups to go over all 3 parts of the 4-step. And I want to start out by saying every sponsor does it a little bit differently. If I'm going to talk about it in a way tonight that doesn't make sense to the way your sponsor has taken you through it, it doesn't mean that it's not right. Right? We do it the way that we were taught, and this is the way that I was taught. The program is in the book, the material is in the book, we pull it from there, and however we were presented it, that's how we present it to our sponsees. So there isn't a wrong way, if you will. I'm not here to tell anyone that they did it wrong, but I'm going to present the way that I've always done it and the way I take all my guys through it. So we'll take 2 different parts. Maybe I can get it in today, but you guys know I like to talk. So we might not have time. But what we'll do is we're going to have a whole meeting, a meeting here, where we're going to bring in a whiteboard, and I'll break it down on the whiteboard for you guys so you can actually see how to do all 3 parts on the board. You can visually see it, and I can show you the material and how we introduce it to help to take the action that's needed to overcome the things in our 4-step. So that's kind of the plan. We'll see how far we get tonight. Okay, so we are on page, let's see here, we are on page, okay, we're on 63. Okay, so last thing we did in the last group that we had is we talked about the 3rd step, right? So we made a decision to turn our will and life over to the care of God as we understand Him, right? The reason why the 3rd step, there's 1, 2, and 3, and then 4, you know, it's just like school, right? We got to go through 1st grade, so we don't go from 1st grade to being a senior. So now that we're at the 4th step, that gives us the ability to A, have a sponsor, admit powerless and unmanageability, to fully concede to our innermost self that we're alcoholics. The second thing that it's allowed us to do, which is the 2nd step, is to form a conception of a higher power to draw on for strength, which gives us hope, the principle. And then the 3rd step is making a decision to put some action in because we have this power in our life now. So now we have some faith that if we channel this power for strength, things are going to get better for us. Now we're going to have some courage because now we have a power that gives us the courage to attack the 4th step. So that's why it's number 4. So we have some tools in our tool belt. If we started to do a 4-step, if we came in here day 1, right, you did an intake and then did a 4-step, you'd probably go out and relapse again right away. Right? And you know, and that's just the truth, because you don't have drugs and alcohol are the solution to your 4-step. And there is a solution. It says in their hearts they really don't know why they do it. If I went around the room, and if you haven't worked the steps yet, if you've done a 4-step, you should know the why by now. But if you are brand new and I say, why do you do it? And don't tell me it's fun, because I don't know about you guys, but I wasn't having so much fun living in an abandoned house. Like, I was having fun. Stealing power from the neighbor, if any. Right? That ain't fun. Prison wasn't fun. None of that stuff was fun, right? Why do you do it? Well, I like the effect. Yeah, sure, that'll work. Right? But why? What's the why? You won't really know the why until you do a 4-step. It's the causes of our conditions. It's a fact-finding basis, which we're going to talk about today. So you're going to figure out what the why is. So now here we are, and anyone who ever sponsors anybody, and if you'll know that you'll become a step 1, 2, 3 pro. Whereas most people, when they get to the 4th step, they're like, nah, I'm good on all that. They got a little bit of relief, right? Mom dropped them off a pack of cigarettes, you know what I mean? They can do 50 push-ups again, right? Fuck a 4-step, right? I'm good on all that. 5th step, get honest, I'm an opiate addict, dude. It's by any means necessary, right? Pat, you were there. Shit got weird, brother. You know what I mean? I don't want to tell anyone about that, you know, right? So I'm good, right? So you'll become a 1, 2, 3 pro. But as a sponsor, your main job is to get them to a 4-step. Just get them to the 4-step, man. That's the best thing you can do. Get them to a 4-step. And if we can get through that 4-step and understand it and figure out how to apply the tools the book gives us to overcome the why of our alcoholism and our addiction, then we don't need to change the way we feel again. But if I have all these untreated negative emotions on my heart when if I feel resentments, I feel fear, and I feel sex inventory, I'm going to want to get high again, dude. Sex inventory is about relationships, right? Sex inventory, yeah, we're going to look at some of those relationships, but life is a series of relationships, right? Life is a series of them. The book can be described, the steps can be described in a relationship format. Steps 1, 2, and 3 is designed for you to develop a relationship with God. 4, 5, 6, and 7 is designed for you to develop a relationship with self again. 8 and 9 is relationships with others. 10 is the main sub-relationship with self. 11 is the main sub-relationship with God. And 12 is the main sub-relationship with others. Yeah. And I don't know how to have meaningful relationships because guess who's involved in all of them? This guy. And I'm selfish. And that don't add up in a relationship, right? So we're going to try to break it down, talk about the 3 different parts. I do the 4-step in 3 individual parts. We'll see how far we get today. So every step leads into the next step, right? When we drew near to him, he disclosed himself to us, right? I'll be persuaded to say, yes, I'm one of them. 2, I must have this thing. That's a transition into step 1, right? At times, we have no certain mental defense against that first drink. Our defense must come from a higher power. That's a transition into step 2, right? When we drew near to him, he disclosed himself to us. That's step 3. Now this is the transition into step 4. It's on the very bottom of 63, and that's where we're going to start. Next, we launched on a course of vigorous action, right? That's the transition. Vigorous means I'll let the cat out the bag. Vigorous means with energy, intensity, and force. Vigorous action. I got to attack this thing, dude. Because if I get stuck, we call it the 4-step blues. I can pretty much look around this room right now and I can see every single guy in here who's in the 4 steps. I can see it on your face. You're like, oh shit, I'm going through it, homie. Yeah. Resentments. Got me fucked up. Right? Fears, dude. I'm fearful. Oh, sex. Oh my God, my sponsor's coming later. Shit. Right? Because you got to feel this. You got to look at that. So we call it the 4-step blues. So my point is attack this thing, get through it. Just knock it out, dude. Just get through it. You don't want to sit in it, dude. Okay. Vigorous action, which the first step is a personal house cleaning, which many of us never attempted. Though though the decision was a vital and crucial step, it could have little permanent effect unless at once followed by strenuous effort to face and to be rid of the things in ourselves which have been blocking us. So far 2 major words, vigorous and strenuous. Got to get through this thing. If I was to say, damn, this is just strenuous, I'm like, damn, right? That means we got to get through this thing, we got to power through it. With energy, intensity, force, everything we got, get through with it, thorough and honest as we possibly can. Strenuous effort to face and be rid of the things in ourselves which have been blocking us. The liquor, the drugs, the alcohol was but a symptom, so we had to get down to the causes and conditions. So this is the causes of our condition. This is the why. We're going to learn the why. The reason why I use is because when I feel the resentments that I blame everybody else for. It's my mom's fault, it's my girl's fault, it's probation's fault, it's the city of Peoria's fault, it's DOC's fault for not rehabilitating me, right? It's their fault. I blame them for my problems. I'm full of fear because my self-sufficiency, which we'll see when we talk about the fears, the middle column, my self-sufficiency feeds into every single one of my fears. So I'm completely consumed by fears because my actions feed right into them. And then sex inventory, shit, ego, that's a deflation of ego. I think I'm the man, but then I look at it on paper and I'm like, damn, dude, that's pretty ugly, right? Oh, shit, right? So when I get sober, I feel all this again. I don't like the way it feels. Drugs and alcohol are the solution. Don't think, don't feel, don't care. I feel it. I'm like, nah, hell no. Boom, boom. Now I don't think about it. Now I do more resentments, fears, sex inventory, horrible relationships, all like that. Boom. Just like we talked about in the doctor's opinion, the cycles of a spree. Obsessing over, want to change the way we feel. Desire kicks in. I'm not calling my sponsor at that point. I'm relapsing the third stage, right? Whenever I stop, I'm extremely remorseful, but I don't know what to do, so I repeat it. So I feel again. I don't like the way that feels. So I get high again, but the problem is I create more damage. So when I get remorseful again, it feels worse. I repeat it. It feels worse. It feels worse. It feels worse, and it feels like I can't get myself out of it. So now we're going to identify the causes of our conditions in the 4th step. Okay, so you can outline it if you'd like to make a note in your book. This is the 4th step. Therefore, we started on a personal inventory. This was the 4th step. Step 4, a business which takes no regular inventory usually goes broke. So it's going to compare your inventory as that as of a business owner. Taking a commercial inventory, circle fact-finding, circle fact-facing process. It's an effort to discover the truth about the stock and trade. So you are the stock and trade. We're going to find some facts out about yourself and we're going to face them and figure out the who you really are at this point. So the 4th step gives us the clear-cut game plan of exactly what I need to change. I need to change my part in the 4th column of the resentments. I need to change my part in the middle column of the fears, the self-sufficiency, and I need to establish what a meaningful relationship looks like and stick to it in the sex inventory, right? Okay. One object is to disclose damaged and insoluble goods to get rid of them promptly without regret. If the owner of the business is to be successful, He cannot fool himself about values. We did the exact same things with our lives. We took stock honestly. We searched out, underlined, we searched out the flaws in our makeup which caused our failure. This is what is causing our failure. Everything in the 4-step. Being convinced that self, underlined, manifested in various ways is what had defeated us. We considered its common, underlined, manifestations. Underline the next sentence. Resentment is the #1 offender. It destroys more alcoholics than anything else. So, you hear people say that all the time, right? Resentment's the #1 offender. Resentment's the #1 offender. And I'm feeling a little bit under the weather today. Excuse me. So, resentments are the #1 offender. How many times you've heard people say that in meetings? #1 offender. They're the #1 offender. My favorite thing is to say, well, why are they the #1 offender? Who could tell me the why? That's $1 million. If they're the #1 offender, well, I better know why they're the #1 offender. Now, the reason why I had you underline the manifestations, in the top paragraph up there, I had you underline that we considered its common manifestations, self-manifested in various ways, because when I look at my resentments and I see, and I put 40 of them on paper, and I look at my part in them, right? My part, my manifestations is the character defects that I possess, right? The lying, cheating, manipulating, stealing, the selfishness, the self-centeredness, the ego. And I have 99% of every resentment that I have, that is my part in it. So that tells me, because I've collected the data and the evidence, that if I have a resentment today, that I'm still playing my part. And my part is character defects. So what that means is my disease is manifesting itself again. That means I'm still living in my disease. And it's fatal if I live in my disease long enough, because this thing wants me dead on a day-to-day basis. Yeah. So that's why it is the #1 offender. Because my disease is still manifesting itself, because every one of my resentments I play a part, and my part is my disease, character defect. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Okay, all right. From it stems a form of a spiritual disease, for we've not only been mentally and physically ill, we've been spiritually sick. When the spiritual malady is overcome, we straighten out mentally and physically. In dealing with these resentments, we set them on paper. We listed people, institutions, principles with whom we were angry. We asked ourselves why we were angry. In most cases, it was found that our self-esteem, our pocketbooks, our ambitions, our personal relationships, including sex, were hurt or threatened. So we were sore, we were burned up. On our grudge list, we set opposite each name our injuries. Was it our self-esteem, our security, our ambitions, or personal relations which have been interfered with? Okay, so right now, when you see on the paper right now in the book, on this page, excuse me, you're going to see 3 columns. So I'm going to have you identify the 3 columns. I'm going to have you add a 4th column. I use the 4-column system that the book prescribes. Remember, it's not Jason's program, it's the program. It's got the 3 columns right here, and it tells me on the next page that I should probably add the 4th column, because I'm going to look at it from an entirely different angle. So we're going to have you identify the 4 columns. We're not going to go over them right here at this point. We're going to continue to push through the 4-step. And like I said at the beginning of this, we're going to come back and I'm going to bring a whiteboard and we're going to identify. I'm going to show you guys how to really work through a 4-step. Kind of give you an idea of how to do that. That'll go great with whatever your sponsor's doing with you now. And for the guys who haven't got there yet, it'll give you a good idea of what's to come. Okay. So where it says I'm resentful at, right? Who? So that's the who. Who you mad at? Who you pissed off at? The cause is the why. Why are you mad? So the who and the why. And where it says affects my, that's the what. And yep, affects my, put what above that. That's the 3rd column. And then that blank spot on the page right there, draw a line, make a 4th column, and write my part. So we're going to use a 4-column system. Now I'm going to give you an example of it today. Like I said, I'll bring the whiteboard and go through all that with you guys. I'll show you how to actually do it. I'll give you some examples of the 4 columns, how they look, how to apply the tools that they give you in the book. And we're going to outline those as we go along. Okay, so let's go down to the bottom. We went back through our lives. Underline the next sentence. Nothing counted but thoroughness and honesty. On the bottom of your page, I want you to write the $1 million question. How free do you want to be? That's the question, right? You guys hear it all the time. You hear all these cliches, right? One day at a time, live and let live, right? How free do you want to be, right? But they're so true. They have such extreme meaning to them. And the reason why I bring this question up now, nothing counted but thoroughness and honesty. If I think about it, I write it down, bottom line. If I want to be as free as I can possibly be, which I told my sponsor when he asked me that question back in 2018, I said, dude, I want to be free, bro, like free. Like for real. He said, well, if you think about it, you write it down. If it comes to your mind, there's a reason why it came to your mind, write it down. Better be safe, right? It says that we usually find a solitary self-appraisal insufficient. That's from the 5th step, all right? Just, I'm over that resentment. I mean, I'm good. That fear, I mean, it's good now. I don't have to write that down. I'm not going to talk about that, right? That's insufficient. So I have to write these things down. If I think about it, I write it down. If I want to be as free as I could possibly be. Okay. When we were finished, we considered it carefully. The first thing apparent was this world and its people were quite wrong. To conclude that others were wrong as far as most of us ever got. I have to blame everyone else for my addiction and my problems because it allows me to continue my negative behavior. If it's your fault, I can surely continue to do what I have to do, right? If I blame Crossroads for my problem, right, it's their fault. Not the fact that I didn't do my part and I didn't get up and I didn't go to any of the groups and I got high while I was here and I disrespected staff, but it's their fault. I'll show you I'm going to go be homeless again. See what you did? That's the insanity of our illness. All we gain through working a 12-step program at bare minimum is awareness, and when I'm aware, I'm responsible. I can no longer live in this delusional fantasy world that it's my wife's fault or my mom's fault. I know my actions because I'm going to learn everything about me, the effort to discover the truth about the stock and trade. I'm going to learn everything I need to know about me in a 4-step. And then I'm going to let my sponsor and God know everything about me too in the 5th step. Right? Take the power out of it. Okay. So, sometimes it was remorse and we stayed sore, but the more we fought and tried to have our own way, the worse matters got. As in war, the victor only seemed to win. Our moments of triumph were short-lived. It is plain that a life which includes deep resentment leads only to futility and unhappiness. To the precise extent we permit these, underline, do we squander the hours that might have been worthwhile. Here's an example of that, squandering the hours that might have been worthwhile. So I have a resentment. Let's say I live here with you guys. I've been to Crossroads, Arcadia, right? I've lived in plenty of settings like this. Did a lot of prison time. Okay, I get it, right? So let's say I get up in the morning, right? And I'm waiting in line in there to go to the bathroom, and when you're in there in the bathroom and you're in there before me and I gotta piss, you're taking forever, I go in there and you piss on the toilet seat. I'm pissed now. I'm mad as hell at you, right? I'm gonna tell you who I think you are, and I am, dude. I'm gonna let you know a little piece of my mind, but the problem with me is I'm a people pleaser, so I'm gonna have that conversation later, right? So now we're sitting in group, and the whole time we're in group, I'm just looking at you like, oh, this scumbag, dude. Scumbag, right? As soon as this group's over, I'm gonna tell him a little something about that. I'm gonna make sure he never does that again. Everybody knows it was him, because it's probably him all those other times. Then the group's over. I'm like, oh, he's in line for lunch. I'll wait till after lunch, though. Right? Now we're in the next group, same thing. Oh, yeah, okay. Oh, it's movie night? Oh, it's Friday night movie night? I'll do it after the movie. Oh, he looks tired. I'll do it in the morning. Right? Because I'm a people pleaser. I avoid tough conversations. I don't like conflict. That's me. Right? So now what's happened is that resentment has consumed me all day long, that I've squandered every hour that might have been worthwhile in that day. And he didn't even know anything about it. And he probably didn't even piss on the toilet. Who knows? My point is, these resentments, it's just an example of one, dude. There's so many of them. If I have untreated resentments in my life and an untreated 4-step, I could have 70 resentments that I'm attached to that consume every bit of my day. So now I'm just sitting here in Crossroads, just sitting here. I ain't doing nothing, I ain't changing nothing, I ain't getting any results because I can't get past these resentments. So we're going to pull that block away by taking advantage of how the book prescribes to do that. Does that make sense to you guys? Yeah. Okay. All right. But with the alcoholic whose hope is the maintenance of a growth of a spiritual experience, the business of resentment is infinitely grave. We found that it is fatal. For when harboring such feelings, we shut ourselves off from the sunlight of the spirit. The insanity of the alcohol returns and we drink again. With us, to drink or to use is to die. So when we talk about the sunlight of the spirit, this is the way that I look at it, right? So if I haven't done a 4th and a 5th step right now, when all these things are in the dark, they hold power over me. I have to bring them from the dark to the light. I have to bring them to the sunlight of the spirit. So right now, this is the sunlight of the spirit, and I'm like this right now. I'm being blocked by the sunlight of the spirit. I do my resentments. I go through my fears. I go through my sex inventory and learn about meaningful relationships and how to handle them. I get honest in 5, and now I've removed the block of the sunlight of the spirit. I don't know if you guys see me right now, but I got a pretty damn good tan, right? I'm getting hit with that sunlight of the spirit, dude. But until then, I'm being blocked by it. So we have to remove that block. And everything in the 4th and 5th is standing in the way of that. Okay. If we were to live, we had to be free of anger. The grouch and the brainstorm were not dubious, or grouch and the brainstorm were not for us. They may be the dubious luxury of normal men, but for the alcoholic, these things are poison. So typically, I would have you right here, and I have you put stop. So typically when I would be working with an individual, a sponsee of mine, I would stop at this point because the rest of this part right here is going to give you 4 tools I pull out of it, if you will. 4 different tools which we're going to label, but in order to look at the tools, you have to make the list. And it also says we turn back to the list. So that would imply that I've made the list of my resentment. So typically we would make the 4 columns and we'd make the list. Then once we had the list, I would read this part with you, identify the 4 different tools, and then it's my job to sit down with you and go over and see if we can apply every one of the tools if all 4 at one time, which I'll give you an example of that, or we're just going to see what other outside things we can do that create some action. Because I wish it was as easy as writing down some resentments and fears and sex inventory, poof, they're gone. It don't work like that. Now I'm aware of them, I feel them even more. So I have to figure out what sort of action or tool that I could apply to it that allows me to create the change and remove the attachment that's negatively impacting every aspect of my life. So you really see what kind of sponsor you got when you get to the 4-step. When I know I got to do a 4-step with a sponsee, I'm like, oh shit, I got to be really engaged today. I got to listen, I got to pay attention. This could be a long haul. Yeah, baby, I might be late tonight. You know what I mean? Type thing. But it's okay. This is what it's all about. Get them to a 4-step, man. Okay. So we turn back to the list. For it held the key to the future. We were prepared to look at it from an entirely different angle. We began to see that the world and its people really dominated us. In that state, the wrongdoing of others, or fancied or real, had the power to actually kill. How could we escape? We saw these resentments must be mastered, but how? We cannot wish them away any more than the alcohol. This was our course. So we're going to identify the 4 tools that the book gives us right here. Okay, so right next to this next sentence, I want you to put a 1 and circle it. We realized that people who wronged us were perhaps spiritually sick. Though we did not like their symptoms and the way these disturbed us, they, like ourselves, were sick too. We asked God to help us show him the same tolerance, pity, and patience we would cheerfully grant a sick friend. When a person offended, we said to ourselves, this is a sick man. How could I be helpful? God save me from being angry. Thy will be done. Okay, so that's the first tool. So if I'm sitting down with one of you guys and you guys tell me, well, I'm mad at mom. You know, she told me that I was worthless and she kicked me out of the house when I was young, and you know, it affected my ambitions, my self-esteem, my personal relationships, right? My part was I was stealing, I was getting high, I never listened to her, right? And I ran away all the time, okay? So how do we overcome that, right? So the first thing I'm gonna ask you, I'm gonna say, is mom an alcoholic or an addict? And if you say, yeah, I'm gonna say, well, she's spiritually sick just like you are. What do I expect? She's got the same symptoms. I might not like the way they disturb me, but she's sick just like I am, right? So what we're doing is looking at it from a different angle. Oh shit, maybe mom's doing the best with what she got. Maybe that's the best she could do, right? And then I take it a step further, and if they're not an alcoholic or an addict, then to me, we're even sicker. I'm like, damn, you don't even got an excuse, right? Yeah, that's for me though, right? I'm like, damn, man, you treat people that way? You don't even shoot up heroin? Like, son of shit. Man, you're real sick. All right, that's for me though, right? But what we're looking at is they have the same symptoms. Anything in my resentments that I'm pissed off about, any one of the 30 or 40 that I had, dude, I have done that. I've done that usually to the same person I'm mad at for doing it to me. But I've surely done it to somebody else along the way. So they're just as sick as I am. Expectations of others are premeditated resentments waiting to happen. Remember that. Write that down, brother.
Say that again?
Write that down. Okay. Expectations of others are premeditated resentments. If I expect you to respond in a certain way, if I expect you to clean a certain way, if I expect you to treat me a certain way, if I expect you to show up to group at a certain time, if I expect you to do those things and you don't, they're resentments waiting to happen.
Expectation of others.
Premeditated resentments. Okay. All right, so that's the first one. Now, in between this next paragraph, I want you to write resentment prayer, page 552, and put a 2 next to it. This is the second tool the book gives us if we pull them out. I'm pulling tools out of this thing, man. So on page 552, I'm going to pull it up for sake of time. I'll pull it up and I'll read it to you guys. This is the second tool, the resentment prayer, page 552. The second tool is the power of prayer. And here it is. It's on 552, like I said. If you have a resentment you want to be free of, if you will pray for the person or thing that you resent, you will be free. If you will ask in prayer for everything you want for yourself to be given to them, you will be free. Ask for their health, their prosperity, their happiness, you will be free. Pay attention. Even when you don't really want it for them, and your prayers are only words, and you don't mean it, go ahead and do it anyways. Do it every day for 2 weeks. You will find you've come to mean it and to want it for them. You will realize that where you used to feel bitterness, resentment, hatred, you now feel compassionate, understanding, and love. Power of prayer. I sponsored a lot of guys while I was away. I used to go over there. There was a handful of guys. I would go over there when we would get to this part and they had some resentments. The hardest ones are going to be when you're children and you didn't play a part in it and you weren't to blame, right? How could you forgive someone who molested you when you were a child or beat you when you were a kid? So what I know today is bad people do bad things and you're worth it and it's not your fault. That's what I do know. But our part in that, and I hate when I have a sponsor, and I mean I have to say it, your part in that when you're a kid is you letting it affect you for the rest of your life.
Re-victimizing.
And so it's hard to say that to somebody, dude, but sometimes that's what they need to hear, man, right? And so we use the power of prayer. Remember, when we talk about, forgiving or letting go, it's not for the other individual, it's to free you from it. So you can start to move on from your life. So you can start to find happiness and power and peace and everything that this program gives you. You can be reborn as the best version of yourself. Or the finest specimen of manhood as one could ever wish to meet. Hold up. What's that from? Doctor's opinion. Yeah, that's my favorite part in the whole book. You guys know that. All right. So that's the second tool, if you will. The resentment prayer, the power of prayer. It's on page 552. So now we're going to pull the third tool out, and here we are. We avoid retaliation or argument. We wouldn't treat sick people that way. Underline the next sentence and put a 3 next to it. If we do, we destroy our chance of being helpful. That is the third tool. So the book tells me that my very life depends upon the constant thought of others and how I may help meet their needs. The easiest way I could describe God's will versus Jason's will, self-will. My will is selfish, his will is selfless, right? The book also tells me that nothing so much will ensure immunity than intensive work with other alcoholics, right? I cannot destroy my chance of being helpful. So that'd be like me creating a resentment with my sponsee out there, get into a physical altercation or argument with him out here, and then coming in here and say, all right, guys, what time does 7 o'clock meeting start? You guys are going to be like, oh, he's faking the funk, dude. I can't respect anything he's got going on. So not only will I not be able to help all you guys, but I surely won't be able to help him. And if I want to help mom get better and recover from this thing and find the solution that I found, I can't destroy my chance of being helpful by harboring this resentment, especially to a sick individual. Maybe I should pray for her. There's those 3 tools all in one. Did you guys catch that? Okay. We cannot be helpful to all people, but at least God will show us how to take a kindly and tolerant view to each and every one of them. Reviewing to our list again, putting out of our minds the other wrongs others had done, we resolutely look for our own mistakes. Where have we been selfish, dishonest, self-seeking, and frightened? Though a situation had not been entirely our fault, we try to disregard the other person involved entirely. Underline the next sentence and put a 4 next to it. Where were we to blame? So this is the main tool that comes from the resentments. Like, this is the main one, right? I never look at my own part because I'm stuck in this delusional fantasy land that it's everybody else's fault. And like I said earlier, I have to believe it's your fault, so it allows me to continue my negative behavior. So this, for the most part, in my case, this one right here, 90% of my resentments, looking at my part, the 4th column, where was I to blame? It's almost comical that I'm mad at anybody. Like, it's almost like, dude, are you kidding me? Like, how could you be mad at mom because she kicked you off the soccer team in 9th grade when you stole everything she's ever had and you ran away from the house and you stole her wedding ring and you lied to her and you were a horrible son, you manipulated her to every chance you get, but you're mad? Like, come on, man, right? But sometimes it takes me to see it on paper to really connect the dots, right? So this is going to be the major tool. So if we were to sit down right now and we were to outline this and you were to say, okay, I would sit down and I would say, okay, you have a resentment, you're mad at mom. Mom did, mom abandoned you when you were a child, right? Okay, I understand that. What did it affect? It affected my self-esteem, my personal ambitions, my sex relationships, my pocketbook. It affected every single thing to me for the last 20 years, all that. Okay, what was your part? Well, I was a kid, man. Like, I didn't play a part. Did you have any contact with mom later on in life? Yeah, I did, and she came back into my life for a brief time, and when she came back into my life for a brief time, I bled her for some money. Like, mom, you already know you've been gone. What's up with that Fetty Wap on my books? I'm gonna need that. You owe me that, right? Okay, so now we're gonna apply the 4 tools that we just went over. You been there, brother? Right? I'm gonna need that money. Okay, and so if I'm your sponsor, I'm gonna say, okay, I completely understand where you're coming from and how that could affect you like that. Let me ask you this, is mom an alcoholic or an addict? Yeah, well, do you think she's spiritually sick just like you are? Yeah. Let's try praying for mom. Even if you don't mean in their only words, let's do it anyways. Let's use the power of prayer. I've got everything to gain, nothing to lose from it. Let's try that. Would you want to have a relationship with mom, or at very least, want her to be healthy again? And would you want to help her in some way, even if it's from a distance? Well, I don't think we should destroy our chance of being helpful. Let's look at your part over the years. Let's look at the type of, friend you've been, the type of son you've been, the type of father you are now. Ooh, that's a tough one, right? I don't want to be like my mom and my dad, but I'm just like them, right? I'll never want to treat my kids the way that my parents treated me. That's not the case. Personal experience. I know my mom and dad listen to this. Mom, my bad. Right? That's not the case, right? My parents are great, but I'm just saying. Sometimes I have to say that. What type of father are you? I abandoned my kids for 8 years. Went to prison. Didn't see my daughter for 2 years because I wanted to run around the yard, sell dope, and get high, dude. But I love her. Not mad at my dad for what? Taking me on cruises. Like, come on, man, it's comical, right? But that's how I would sit down with you and try to apply all 4 different tools in there. Did you guys catch all 4 of those right there?
Yeah.
And so that's how we'll start it. Now, that's not going to work in every one of them. I had a guy, for example, who was bullied, right? Affected him for his whole life. Dude had a hard time shaking it. We have to find some type of action behind it. So me and him one day, we pulled up to a Boys and Girls Club, just random Boys and Girls Club that was by his house, went in there, and we're like, hey, we talked to the staff member, like, hey, do you think that me and him can talk to all the kids, we can get them together and talk to them about being bullied? And they're like, yeah, I mean, that's cool. We went up there for 10 minutes. We each talked about being bullied and how it affects and how unhealthy it is and how unacceptable it is and how damaging it is. And when we got back in the car, I said, how do you feel now? And he said, I feel grateful. So in that moment, he switched that attachment. That's why sponsorship is so important. Because you're switching the attachment of your past. I don't regret the past and I wish to shut the door on it. My past has now become my greatest asset. I'm grateful for all the things I've done because now I'm more qualified to sit here and help you guys. Doesn't make it right, my actions. But what it means is I don't have a negative attachment anymore. Right? Then the serenity prayer really means something to me. That makes sense for the resentments?
Yes,
sir.
Kind of get a better understanding?
Yeah.
So we have time to do the fears. So I'm going to do the fears. So next week, maybe what we'll do is we'll do the sex inventory with the whiteboard, and I can take the first beginning of it to go over the sex inventory. Then I'll break all 3 areas down on the whiteboard in the column system and show you how to actually do them so you can visually see it. So I think that'll work out perfectly for us, and that'll be the plan. Okay? So where were we to blame? That's the biggest part. The inventory was ours, not the other man's. We saw our faults. We listed them. We placed them before us in black and white. We admitted our wrongs honestly and we're willing to set these matters straight. Okay, so now if you want to circle the word fear and write fear off to the side. So this would be the second part. So typically I would do the resentments. Once we were all done with those, then we'd start with the fears. Okay. Notice that the word fear is bracketed alongside the difficulties with Mr. Brown, Miss Jones, and the employer. So what they're referencing is that 3 column on the previous page. They're referencing that right there. Underline the next sentence. This short word somehow touches about every aspect of our lives. How true this is. So when we actually sit down and do the 3 column system, which I'm going to describe for you here shortly, you're going to see why it touches every aspect of your life, because your actions feed right into every fear that you have. That's why. When I do what I want to do, I got a fear of going back to prison. So when Jason does what Jason wants to do, self-will, I commit 6 felonies a day. I got a fear of my parents dying, not being proud of me, so I do everything I could possibly do to piss them off and make them disappointed. I got a fear of losing my wife, so I'm the worst husband in the world. I got a fear of dying from Hep C, so what do? Continue to share needles. That's why it touches every aspect of my life. So when we look at the 3 column system, and I'm kind of jumping ahead a little bit, but you guys were engaged, so I figured we'd talk about it now. But when we see that middle column, that, my friends, is the insanity of our illness. And that's why it touches every aspect of our lives, because our actions feed right into it, like directly. Okay. It was an evil and corroding thread. The fabric of our existence was shot through it. It set in motion trains of circumstances which brought us misfortune we felt we didn't deserve. But did not we ourselves set the ball rolling? Sometimes we think fear ought to be classed with stealing. It seems to cause more trouble. We review our fears thoroughly. We put them on paper even though we had no resentment in connection with them. So I'm going to have you identify the 3 different columns. So I want you to write a number 1 next to this next sentence. We asked ourselves why we had them. That's the second column, the first column. Then where it says, wasn't it because? That's number 2, second column. Wasn't it because self-reliance failed us? Self-reliance was as far as it went, but it didn't go far enough. Some of us once had great self-confidence, but it didn't fully solve the fear problem or any other. When it made us cocky, it was worse. So the first column is the what's the fear, why is it the fear? The second column is self-reliance, self-will, how to handle it in the past. Let's look at some insanity real quick. The beginning of that next paragraph where it says perhaps, put a number 3 right there. Perhaps there's a different way, a better way. We think so, for we're now on a different basis, the basis of trusting and relying upon God. We trust infinite God rather than our finite selves. We're in the world to play the role He assigns. So that's the third column, God's sufficiency, God's will, how I'm going to handle in the future, the role He assigns. So we're going to establish the role He assigns because there's got to be some action steps behind this. I can't just write down some fears and think they're gone now. I can't just identify some resentments and feel like I'm over them. I can't just write down what a healthy relationship looks like in the sex inventory and think that's all good now. Because we all know about that. See, what happened was I met this girl, and, she's going to write me though. I took the case for her though. She's going to be on the team though, player. Yeah, I had to do the right thing, man up. You know what it is. I already got the number. My homies are there. Yeah.
She might ride or die.
Yeah, she might ride or die. Yeah. See what happens, I met this girl. And so they always tell you in the room, go wait a year. You're going to wait a year. Dude, let's get realistic. Dude, 95% of you are going to be in a relationship within your first 30 days out of here, dude. Guarantee it, dude. Hey, you can have the best plan in the world. You throw a chick in the mix, out the window. But maybe for the first time, you guys will have a connection to a higher power. Oh, that was a low blow. That was my bad, guys. I owe you amends. You didn't deserve to be treated that way. Is there any other ways I've harmed you that I might be unaware of? There probably is. I'm willing to do anything to make it right. And I can assure you that as long as I continue... But that's the thing, man. Is the relationships are the hardest thing, man, to deal with because for the most part, like I got sober in prison, dude. I couldn't really prepare for relationships. We're in here right now. We can do what we can from here. But to actually work on a relationship and that proving ground and the trial and all that we need to have, it's very hard to do. So when we talk about the sex inventory next week and we start to establish what it looks like going through, what a healthy relationship looks like, interdependence, what the healthy characteristics of a relationship is, some five non-negotiables to a relationship, our ideal, sane and sound ideal for our future sex life. When we look at over all those things in the 3-grid system, now we got it, but now we got to stick to it, right? And that's just like everything from the 4-step. I have to be willing to apply the 4 tools. I have to be willing to take the time to put some action behind each resentment. I have to be willing to live in the 3rd column of the fears, which we're going to talk about now, long enough because the opposite of fear is faith. So I have to put my action steps in long enough in order to alleviate those fears in my life. And we're going to talk about those in a second with the last 5 or 10 minutes that we have left. And then ultimately I have to stick to the non-negotiables in my relationships. I have to contribute to relationships in my life instead of take for once. So I have to do my part because this shit just doesn't go away. If I could lay in my bed and pray this shit away, dude, I wouldn't have to do anything. I just pray it away. But it don't work like that. Okay? So we're in the world to play the role He assigns. Just to the extent we do as we think He would have us and humbly rely on Him, does He enable us to match calamity with serenity. We never apologize for anyone for depending upon our Creator. We can laugh at those who think spirituality is the way of weakness. Paradoxically, it's the way of strength. The verdict of the age is that faith means courage. All men of faith have courage. They trust their God. We never apologize for God. Instead, we let Him demonstrate through us what He can do. We ask Him to remove our fear and direct our attention to what He would have us to be at once we commence to outgrow our fear. As soon as I make that decision in step 3 to live in my higher power's will and focus my thoughts and actions, as soon as I establish that 3rd column in my fears and I let my actions reflect it, at once my fears are gone. Why? Because I'm living in the solution to my fears. That's why. But I have to continue to do it. So now these are the 3 columns which we're going to talk about now. Okay? So I kind of talked about it a little bit earlier, right? We identified them with 1, 2, and 3. So the first column I'd have you write down is what's the fear and why is it the fear? You can put the what. I mean, the why even better. If I could really identify the root of the fear, right? I got a fear of abandonment. Why? Because mom abandoned me. Every girl I've ever had has left me when I've been in prison, right? Every girl I've ever had has cheated on me. Every friend I ever had is no longer around. That's the why of it, okay? If you can take it a step further with the what and the why, it's even better. But if you can at least identify the fear, we can work with that. The second column would be called self-sufficiency, how to handle it in the past, aka self-will. Okay, so let's just say, for example, for abandonment, we'll stick with that one. That's the example we're going to use. So what's the fear of abandonment? Why? Because everyone in my life's abandoned me. What does Jason do in the second column, run on self-will? Do everything I can to push every single person away. What else do I do? Well, I'm a horrible friend. I'm so selfish that no one wants to be around me, and I steal from everyone. Why would they want to be around me? But I got a fear of abandonment. That's the insanity. So second column's insanity. I push everybody away, so you do leave me. Okay, so now the most important part is the third column. We're in the world to play the role he assigns. Be as detailed as you possibly can. And again, the next session, the next meeting that we do, we're going to do this on the board so I can really show you how this works. The third column is God sufficiency. So how am I going to handle it in the future? Well, I'm going to be the best version of myself, contribute to relationships, have open communication, honesty, shared decisions, joint action, genuine concern for one another. I'm going to do my part. I'm going to live in God's will. I'm going to stay sober. I'm going to work a program of recovery. And I'm going to be very particular with the people I let in my circle. And I'm going to make amends to everyone that I've ever harmed in my life. That's what I'm going to do. And that's the role that God assigns. It can't be the second column because that's not what I do. But since I've made a decision to live in God's will, that's the role. So now I know what it is. Okay, what's the next one? Well, the next one for me is I got a fear of... let's say fear of, this is one from when I did my step work in prison. I got a fear of getting page 2 and catching a new case. That's my fear. Why? Because I don't want to do any more time, and I got a fear of it, right? I'm sick of doing time. My kids are getting older. My daughter's getting older. My wife's fucking every single day. You know, I could only tell her we're getting that Senate pill and that 65%, right? Every year. She knows it ain't coming no more. I can't use that pump fake, the pump fake 3000, you know what I'm talking about? Don't even trip, baby. This year, 65. I'll be home. You know damn well you still got 3 years. Don't even trip. I'm coming home this year, baby. I'm gonna do some prison math. I cancel that. I didn't have a ticket. I'm gonna get my good time back. Okay, get the LP, get off that. All right. World class 3s. Right? Gotta take that major program, see? And then 65%'s got a good chance. They're gonna get through this year. I'll be home by the end of the year, baby. Home for Christmas. I didn't get out till 2021. I was talking that way since 17, you know what I mean? She's gonna be here soon. She'll love it. It's true. It's prison math, brother. Yeah, it's prison math.
It never works out.
No, it never checks out. Never, ever. Then you get a time comp, you're like, God damn. Something's got to be wrong with this.
Seal 3.
So I got a fear of doing more time. So what does Jason do in the second column? Run around on the yard with a cell phone selling dope on the yard. Run around trying to catch 10 years. That's why it touches every aspect of my life. I got a fear of losing my family and catching more time, so I'm trying to catch more time. I'm getting high-speed foot chases with the cops. True story. Pat, you were there. All right? Okay. So now how am I going to handle that going forward in the future? Well, I'm going to stay sober. I'm going to work a program. I'm going to establish a connection to a higher power. Right? I'm not going to get a single ticket. Right? I'm going to do everything I possibly can to be the best version of myself and be the best member of the inmate population as I possibly can, help as many people along the way. And that's what I did, and I got all my good time back, right? So, you see that third column is most important. I got a fear of my parents dying not being proud of me. Why? Because I just want my parents to be proud of me for once, man. Because I've disappointed them for 20 years. My parents are getting older. Multiple prison sentences, a 3.5, 8-year prison sentence, raising my daughter, my wife. I mean, dude, you name it. The potential, the shoulda, coulda, wouldas, dude. Wrecked all their vehicles, stole all their stuff, treated them fucking horribly, dude. Proud of me. They couldn't even speak my name, dude. They didn't even want to go anywhere that had, when anyone would be like, oh, how's your son doing? Oh, he's on vacation. You know, he's got that good job out there in Florence. Right? Oh, yeah. Yeah, didn't he have the same job in Douglas in 2006? Yeah, same one. He got a promotion. Right? Okay, so the middle column, my part, just for sake of time, is do everything I possibly could do to piss them off, disappoint them, and be the worst son known to mankind. Okay, so how am I going to handle that now that I'm in the world to play the role he assigns? The third column, God's sufficiency. Well, I'm going to contribute to their life. I have to stay sober to do any of that. I have to work a program of recovery. Anything I could possibly, I'm not going to take a single thing from them again. Dude, I get to go over to my parents' house and do yard work, dude, and that shit makes me so happy. To be able to help my dad for once. Like, I go over there and do yard work, happy as hell. I'll bring the trash cans in. Don't even trip, Dad. I got that for you. You got that coming. I get to contribute to their life today. That's how I make them proud of me, right? So now I've established that, and now I got to put it into action. I'll give you guys one more. And so the reason why I'm giving you as many of them, we're going to do it on the board like I've said multiple times, but because that third column, when I'm your sponsor, I don't really care about much of it. All I'm listening for is the third column. So what I'm going to do, and I'll show you in a second, is I'm establishing your action steps. Okay, so I'll give you one more and then I'll show you what I mean by that. Okay, so let's say the fourth one is, let's see, dying of hep C. Okay? Why? Because it's stupid, it's ugly. I've seen people swell up and die from it, and it's just a horrible way to die. And I got hep C, and I know the exact day that I got it, and it's dumb as hell. So how does Jason handle that? In the middle column, share needles, continue to be unsafe, and shoot up with toilet water. Okay, well, that checks out. All right, so now the third column, how am I going to handle that going forward in the future? Well, I'm going to stay sober. A. B, I'm going to see a doctor. C, I'm going to get access, get the treatment, which today, because I established this back in 2018, today I'm hep C free because I got the fucking treatment. Because I live in the third column now. That fear is gone. My parents are proud of me again. That fear is gone. I'm not going back to prison because I don't fucking break any laws anymore. That fear is gone. Right? The fears will fall from you. Okay, so my point is, that third column is most important. So the whole time you're telling me all your fears, we all have the same one. The fears, the resentments might be a little more difficult for you, but the fears, dude, we all got them. Fear of success, fear of what I'm going to do when I get out of here, fear of where I'm going to live, fear of being a good father, fear of relapse, fear of fentanyl, fear of going back to prison, fear of violation of probation, fear of relapse, fear of my parents dying not being proud of me, fear of my wife leaving me, fear of my daughter calling someone else dad, fear of the daddy-daughter dance, right? Fear of what am I going to do for work, fear of success, fear of failure. We all have the same ones, dude. That shit is not very difficult to do. You should be able to slap these out real quick, okay? So that's why when I say just read them to me, because we have the same damn ones. Okay, but what I'm listening for is the third column. Again, I'll show you guys on the board. It'll make it a lot simpler, but I want to close it out by at least finishing this part of it. Okay, so as you're reading them to me, I'm making a checklist. I'm like, boom, stay sober. Boom, work program. Boom, relationships. Boom, see doctor. I'm making a tally. I'm making a checklist, right? Oh, there it is again, recovery. Oh, there it is again. Oh, relationship. Oh, see a doctor. Oh, health. Oh, money, bank account, budget, right? I'm making a checklist. So when you're done with all 30 of your fears, then I'm going to say, okay, I got your top 5 list right here, player. These are the top 5 things you have to maintain in your life. If you maintain them long enough, your fears will fall from you, because why? These are the solutions to your fears. And usually they're going to be pretty similar for all of us. Stay sober, live in God's will, work a program, be particular with the people we let in our circle, contribute to relationships that, it'll be a little bit different. Some of us are going to have a lot of relationship fears. Some of us are going to have a lot of health fears. Some of us are going to have a lot of recovery-related fears. So now we establish that. Work a program, be in a higher power's will, stay connected to that, make some amends, rebuild relationships, consistency, action, right? Take care of my physical health. So now I know, then I can break them down a little bit further for you, so you really know how to apply those. So now we know the top 5 solutions to your fears. Well, how do you work a program recovery? Well, I'm going to have a home group, I'm going to get a service commitment, I'm going to get a sponsor, I'm going to go to meetings, I'm going to work with others. Those are the non-negotiables of my recovery. That's how I keep number 1 in check. How am I going to keep number 2 in check, which is a higher power? Well, first I got to understand how to experience that higher power. Prayer, meditation, physical fitness, being present in the relationships in my life, tucking my daughter into bed every single night, telling her that I love her through my actions, not through my words, right? Music, service work, laughter. That's how I experience God. Now I know how to keep that in check, introduce those things into my lifestyles. Okay, if relationships are a problem, well, I have to understand what a healthy relationship looks like. Good thing I'm going to do that next in step 4. And the third part of that, be particular of who I let in my circle, make sure those characteristics are there, right? so on and so forth. Again, we'll break it down so you can see it. So now I know how to overcome my fears. Instead of just writing them down, reading them, be like, okay, cool. Opposite of fear's faith. But good now. What the fuck? I gotta know how to, dude, I'm telling you, man. That's why I really want to get a whiteboard in here so I can really show you guys what this really looks like so you have a real understanding of your part to correct it because it's a program of action. So next week we'll pick up with the sex inventory. We'll get a whiteboard in here. We'll break them all down. Then we'll move on to 5 the following week. So thank you guys for being here tonight.
Thanks.